Meanwhile, back on the podcast, 4 colossal nerds named Saba, Chris, Christina, and Frank have set out to take on a great darkness that has enveloped the world of fandom. With their powers of common sense and the strength to take on even the most butthurt Twitter mobs and insufferable comment section trolls, they fight for truth, objectivity, and nuance in the conversation and debate over fictional made-up shit.
Welcome back to another exciting episode of Meanwhile Back on the Podcast. I'm Frank McGuire.
I'm Christina Dudumas.
I'm Chris Abano.
And I'm Saba Mir.
Thank you guys. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Meanwhile Back on the Podcast. Thank you for all your support, all your love, the emails, the Instagram messages. We couldn't ask for anything more. We really appreciate everything that you guys have given back to us since we started doing this show. You guys really make this worth it for us. We really have an excellent episode lined up for you guys today. We are going to be doing our review, our spoiler hot review of the DC animated film Red Son. So be sure to stay with us for that. But before we jump into the episode, we'd love to ask you guys to take a couple minutes to review the show. Head over to Podchaser, Apple Podcasts, or Stitcher, and just drop us a review. You know, we're constantly trying to do whatever we can to improve the show, and we find that insights and feedback from the audience really help us in doing that. So if you could head over there, drop us a review, we'd really appreciate it. And I'm sure you know somebody who shares your passion for anime and sci-fi and fantasy and comic books. Drop them a link to our show. Let them check it out for themselves. You know, word of mouth is one of the best ways to grow a podcast audience. And if you guys could do that for us, we would really appreciate it. Now, before we jump into this room, I think we owe you guys a little bit of an apology. We haven't been that consistent as of late as far as getting episodes up, and we've been facing some technical difficulties, and obviously this situation with COVID-19 has made things a little more challenging, and we lost a couple pieces of equipment. We tried to reorder them from Amazon, but obviously they're backlogged and they're providing priority to people who need food and medicine and, you know, other things that aren't podcast gear. So again, we just want to apologize. So guys, it's been a while since we've had all of us on the on a show together. Like Chris, I think we haven't had you on a show in close to
ages.
I don't know. Yeah, like a month, 2 months almost. Isn't it?
Maybe.
I think the pandemic has done that to most things. Just put a lot of lag.
Yeah. I hope you're all staying safe out there.
Yeah, I hope everybody's staying safe for sure. And yeah, but it's great to have the band back together. It's good to have the OG crew back on the mics.
Yeah, everyone staying healthy and safe. I didn't think I had COVID, but I was like, I'm a little sick. Had strep throat, took antibiotics. I'm totally fine now. My mom still thinks I have COVID. So that's just life.
Yeah, my mom and dad are pretty terrified. I think it's just like they're in the more vulnerable demographics, so I think that's where it's stemming from.
The stuff my mom posts on WhatsApp is ridiculous. I like private message her from her family group chat and being like, that's not true. You can't post that, mother. This is not your personal Facebook page where you put all your like random COVID stuff that is not true. So, you know, there's some fear mongering out there, but obviously, yeah, hopefully everyone is like, you know, staying home if they can, and staying safe and washing those hands, you know?
Yep. There's lots of stuff to do, especially if you're like a power nerd like us. So many comic books you can read. You know, I always make that joke, like you'd have to quit your job to like catch up on, you know, reading comic books, like, to read an entire arc for Thor or Green Lantern or Black Panther. Like you literally have to quit your job. Well, the time is ripe now, you know, the time is now. You know, people can actually do those things now. They can actually catch up on a full comic book run if they really wanted to. But, you know, it's good to also get outside and, you know, jog and ride your bike, obviously by yourself.
That's the thing. So many more people jogging. People telling me that they're jogging. And I'm like, you've never jogged a day in your life. Like, what are you doing? There's like so much. There's a lot of memes about that too, about like a whole bunch of people just like running. But yeah, it is the time now, I guess, if you can take it easy to, you know, and if you're not like panicking, to definitely like start reading things you couldn't read, watch things you couldn't watch. We decided to read and then watch something all together.
We sure did. We sure did. And, people are speculating that this COVID thing is going to lead to this. There's like these conspiracies about this COVID thing leading to the government having too much power and creating some sort of totalitarian state. Well, that's where we're headed right now in this episode, because we're talking about Superman Red Son, the animated film from the DC animated universe that just dropped, I think, about a month and a half ago, maybe even 2 months ago. And we had the opportunity to watch it. And yeah, we wanted to chop it up, talk about it. So first impressions, guys, what was your initial impression of the film?
I really did enjoy it. So I read the comic first and then I went into the movie. It's always that, like, what's the same, what's different. I thought the animation was really beautiful. I really liked that every scene in America was like really like, it was like daytime, and any scene in Russia was like nighttime. I really like that about the movie in general.
So
but
true.
I did enjoy it.
Yeah, for me, I think these are kind of like my favorite types of Superman stories, where it's like, so I went in here like really wanting to like it, because it's like, and I love like elsewhere world like type stories where it's like what if this, what if that, and like I loved so much about this movie, and I love the darkness. There was a few stumbles, we'll get to it, but yeah, I love the animation. I love the reimagining of all these characters we love, and some of them I think fell short. We'll get to it. Mr. Batman over there. We'll get to it later.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, like I love that they do things like this, where it's like, what if Superman was this, and what if Superman? Because like Superman punching things is so boring to me. But like Superman as like the Red Menace. Oh man, like how interesting is that story, right? Like if he's like his symbol is being used as like has been hijacked by a different sort of ideology. But anyway, we'll get in.
Yeah, no. And Christina, what was your take? Like, were you like, did you enjoy the film?
I think I was on the same page with Chris. There was parts of it I liked and parts of it I didn't like. I felt that there was a certain bias towards America in this movie. So as Saba alluded to in her comments, so I felt that as well. But there's definitely some powerful scenes that really stood out and that I enjoyed. So, and definitely it was thought provoking. I like the whole idea of it.
Cool. Yeah, for me, Chris, I know me and you are big fans of the DC animated universe. I would have to say that this is probably in my top 3 as far as DC animated projects go.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's probably bottom 3 for me.
Really? Bottom 3? Wow. Okay.
Like there's not a whole lot out there that I didn't like about the DC animated movies, maybe like Bad Blood or something. Well, like, I don't know. Like, I mean, we'll get to my grievances in a bit, I guess, but this would be in my bottom 3.
I just like the premise, like, an Elseworld story and, these political polarities, these contrasting ideologies. Like, I love this kind of stuff, right? And I love the time of World War II and World War I. So, like, I love historically based stories and content. That stuff really speaks to me, probably because I was like a history geek when I was in high school. And I really enjoyed the way that they tried to merge, real historical moments with this fictional, story basis, right? Like, they're taking this fictional character and they're kind of, hybridizing him with stuff that was actually happening in our world history. I think that kind of stuff is really cool and very exciting and a lot of fun. The animation was beautiful. I really loved the voice work by most of the cast. I didn't really like Jason Isaacs as Superman, to be honest. I thought his Russian accent was a little lame. Was a little soft. I was hoping for a little bit more, something a little bit harder, like maybe Drago. That would have been better for me. He sounded like Drago. I would have been down with that. But yeah, no, I enjoyed it. The music was great. The propaganda was really cool. I really had fun with it. But after, I've already said this to Saba, but after I watched the movie, I read the comic book, and the movie doesn't stand up to the comic book at all.
Yeah, that's where I stand as well.
Yeah, the comic book is king.
For me, the changes were a little bit questionable. And I do agree with you. Like the setting was a standout. Like I love that whole, oh man, like, and I love the time span it took. It wasn't just like an event. It was like we fast forward 5 years into the future, into this big event that happened in our world. What would happen if the Green Lantern Corps was in this world, right? So yeah, I like that for sure.
Yeah. If we're getting right into it in terms of like things we didn't maybe appreciate. One thing for me, and I know what Frank, and I think I know what yours is going to be, Chris, so I'll go another one. Superman for me was almost too ideological to the end. Like the fact that he could not see what was being done, and also that he was so, like, he made a decision in this movie that shocked me. And I don't know if we can talk about it. Can I talk about it? Can I just get into it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So when he goes to Korea, North Korea, and he basically takes lives, you know, and makes it justified. I mean, even before that, he shoots Stalin. That for me just was such a break from like the Superman I know, which was cool. But then the fact that Wonder Woman was still sticking by him and all these sort of things, the fact that he couldn't see what he was doing to himself and like what he was becoming. And I guess that's kind of like the whole thing that he couldn't understand. It's just like you really took a far right or left or whatever into his identity, especially when he was so upset at what was happening before. You know what I mean? I just felt like the methods and like the whole mind control thing, like that to me was like, how do you not think that mind control is evil?
Right.
So I think they tried to justify that by making his upbringing changing his upbringing in the story. So he was raised by Stalin. But even so, I agree. I think he would have still had a certain amount of morals. And I think that the killing of Stalin was a bit too far. Although I could see him doing mind control if he were to be in charge of the population. I just think that killing Stalin was a little bit too far.
So correct me if I'm wrong, because he doesn't kill Stalin in the comics, right? Like Stalin gets like poisoned,
does not.
right?
No, he does not shoot him.
So yeah. So these are this is actually the changes that I loved about it, because I think he, like, that point is when he went all in. So the fact that Superman kills in here, I definitely liked, because this this is wartime Superman, right? Like, and not only that, like this isn't Clark Kent. This is a different upbringing. It's not really the question of let's drop Clark Kent into this story. It's not about the innocence of Clark Kent. It's about let's drop this Superman into this story. And like a Superman in this story would be this like pull the trigger type character, right? The only difference is he's ideological, but he's not kind-hearted, right? So him killing Stalin, I actually really like, because he went all in on I'm gonna change it myself. But because he's not in a softer world where Clark Kent was raised, where like he can afford not to pull the trigger, in this world he had to pull the trigger. The Korea part, I agree with you, but I think I actually really liked how he, like, because that when he killed Stalin, that was a turning point on his character, and it was like at that point on, he was an immovable object.
Stalin, I can give you, like, I can totally give you that. But then that on top of like the Korea part, and then at the end when he's not going to attack America because he doesn't want to waste lives, I was like, bro, like, make up your mind here. You know what I mean? Like, is it for the greater good or not, kind of thing. So that was, I guess, like, I mean, that, and one thing I'll mention, I like Lois Lane in the movies, I think, better than I do like her in the comics. But that's like my first grievance. I know you, Frank.
So what did you say about Lois?
Lois, I like her better in the movie, more her character, more so than the comics. Just because in the comics, I felt like in the comic, someone called her Lois Lane, and she's like, no, I'm Lois Luthor. Whereas here, she kind of felt more like the Lois Lane that I kind of knew in terms of like what her character was. Whereas inside the comics, I was like in the movie, I could understand why she'd stay with Lex. In the comics, I was like, girlfriend, come on. What are you doing? This guy's the worst.
Can we shelf Lois for a second, because I want to get back to, I want to talk about Lois for sure. But let's go back to Superman, like where he was like where he would pull the trigger and where he wouldn't. Like I do agree there's a little bit of a weird discrepancies with when he would like go all out and do something, and then like where he would, like, because he says often like, oh, I want to win the argument, right? But then it like a lot of the time, like, it just gets down to fists, right? Like one of the main things I disliked about this is when the movie was, he keeps saying that he needs to win the argument and not the fight, and then he goes right on to fight them at the end, right? Like, I think the last fight was like really weird to me, because it's like if you were trying to win the argument, the Brainiac fight never should have happened, you know? because it's like I thought it was the argument. You told us that you didn't want to. I don't know. Like it felt a little weird to me.
Yeah, no, he says that he doesn't want to, he did like Brainiac is saying, why don't you preemptively strike the Americans and, force them to coalesce to your ideology? And he says, I don't I've never had to shed any blood in this war. Like I've been able to win this, I've been able to win everything that I've gotten just by the argument, right? That's what he says. But yeah, you're right. He, with the fight at the end with Brainiac, but I don't think Brainiac is something that he can argue with. I don't think it's something he can bait.
Mhm.
Like I just don't think it's anything that he really even intellectually stands a chance against.
Yeah, I felt like the Brainiac was like kind of injected. I'm sure like in the comics, like Brainiac was a bigger part of it, and also like Lex also had like a bigger plan on to take down Superman. But like I felt like in the movie, like especially how they introduced Brainiac, like they introduced him in like this weird like montage, right? Like it wasn't a montage, but it was like kind of like a throwaway scene to introduce him, and he ended up being the big bad in the end. Like I wasn't a big fan of that because it kind of undermines Superman being the bad guy. I think Superman should have been the bad guy in the end, and I get that like it's anticlimactic if they just don't fight in the end, right? But I think if there was gonna be a big fight, it should have been between Lex and Superman. With Brainiac, it just felt like, oh, the big fight happened, but it's not entertaining, so let's just throw Brainiac there to fight them. It felt a little throwaway and injected to me.
I felt like they wanted to explore the whole thing about people not having free speech or free will, and the government controlling people as much as they can because they're communists. So that's why I felt like that was all there.
Yeah, for sure. Like Brainiac's whole mind control thing was very important to Superman's sort of thing, because the entire ideology of him was he can change people by force if he needs to make a better world. I get that, but with Brainiac's whole confusion between, oh, it's Superman's ideology, and then somewhere down the line Brainiac starts controlling him, that completely undermines the entire story, the entire conflict of this story, because it was supposed to be about Superman taking on this ideal and justifying it his way. If you introduce a villain that just kind of brainwashes Superman somewhere in there, I know like it's not him the whole time, like he comes in halfway through the movie, but if you're just introducing, oh, Brainiac was like kind of pushing him a certain way, it just makes Superman's side of the argument weaker, and like we don't want that, because we want him to have like a point in and of himself to like fight Lex's own ideology.
I think the subtext is that Superman was so blinded by what he was trying to achieve that he couldn't even see that Brainiac was pushing him in that direction, right? And you can't match these two up across from each other intellectually and think that the results are going to be any different. Brainiac literally played the long game with him over 45 years. And the one thing I really love about that is that's how the Soviet Union does it. Like when the Soviet Union wants to get over on somebody, they don't do it in 5 years. They don't do it over in 10 years. They take, like decades. They take 25, 30 years to actually bring a plan to fruition. That's a very...
That's because it's a dictatorship. They don't have to worry about their...
No. I know. I'm saying against their enemies. Like I'm saying the subtext was there as something that is extremely communist. Like that is the communist way, is to like wait out your enemies, right? That's what China is doing to everybody else right now.
I mean, if you look at the communist theology, you're not, or like you look at communism, it's not going to say wait out your enemies. But in terms of like in terms of what was sort of portrayed as their government there, like and what was happening, like yes, like Brainiac did play the long game, you could say the long game, and was for sure, and in terms of the comic and the movie as well, was they're slowly like kind of manipulating him, like that was the role he played, and maybe kind of feeding into his own ego. I felt,
yeah, of course,
in a sense, there was a weird, like he had an ego.
Yeah, see, this is why what I found weird is because it's this movie is all about Superman losing himself to his own like initial dream utopia, right? So it's about him kind of like giving into his own ideology and letting it corrupt itself, right? So it kind of makes it weak that there's an outside force doing it, because the entire point is, oh, he took this perfect idea and he doesn't know it, but this idea is impossible to do, and it slowly corrupts him. If you do a villain that kind of helps it along the way, it kind of diminishes the idea of him. Like, you understand what I'm trying to say? There's like an outside element, so it makes his character development like it kind of undermines his character development into this
See, I don't think it does, because I think that it signifies Superman's arrogance, and even Brainiac calls him out on it. He says, "How can you be so arrogant?"
But if you're brainwashed, how do if you're brainwashed to do something?
But he wasn't brainwashed.
Like, how is it your? Sorry,
he wasn't brainwashed.
Well, he was whatever, like
manipulated.
Brainiac slowly starts manipulating him, right?
He was being manipulated.
Yes.
Right. But Superman is the one that supposedly reprogrammed Brainiac. So Superman's the one doing the brainwashing, brother.
No, man. You find out in the end that Brainiac was out of like.
No, I know. Yeah. No. I know. But what I'm saying is, Superman is the one that goes to the step of trying to control another intelligence's
and I like that
actions and thoughts,
I definitely
right?
like that.
Right.
But it's like, it blurs the line between whose plan was who. Because he does the first,
sure,
because it was Brainiac's plan to get captured by Superman, so it was Superman's first step. But why did we have to have this thing where it's like, oh, like which part of this ideology was Brainiac or which part was Superman? Because like Brainiac didn't have to be there, because Superman was the bad guy.
Well, first of all, Brainiac doesn't give a shit about ideology. He doesn't give a shit about communism. He doesn't give a shit about democracy. He gives a shit about whatever his end game is, right? Which is probably collecting as much intelligence and data as he possibly can by taking over other worlds, right? That's his game. That's his end game, right? And the fact that Superman, I think what they're trying to illustrate is that Superman was so arrogant that he thought that he could reprogram Brainiac of all people, right? And that it was going to work, right? That's what I think they're trying to get across. And I think
he was short-sighted in a lot of ways in this movie. Like we see that he made a lot of mistakes strategically.
And also he was very trusting. So if we go back kind of like to the beginning of the movie, you know how like Lex is sending people over and he's fighting them, and I like how he collects like the whole like rogues gallery of villains, and they're like in a museum on display somewhere.
Yeah.
But he's like very like naive. Like Lois Lane had to give him like this report, and he's like, "Oh, that can't be true." And it's like, bro, like you can listen to
but
you can hear everything.
Naive. He grew up in the state, right? He grew up in the state, and he grew up on a farm. And the first time he leaves the farm, he's like his little girlfriend. She's like, "You have to give your powers to the state," right? That's an ideology that cannot be cracked unless it's like you have a fucking sledgehammer. Like once somebody becomes ideologically possessed, you need
that was the
like
point
a
of it,
sledgehammer.
He was naive.
Yeah.
And it wasn't necessarily that he was like bad or good. Like I don't think he was meant to be the bad guy of the movie. Like
he was meant to be the protagonist, that's for sure. But like it was supposed to be his character, like the de-evolution of his character. It's a character deconstruction, right?
Yeah.
So I could see that.
Like,
okay, yeah.
So nothing should. So listen, like nothing should get in the way of his character's like descent into whatever the point of the movie is. Nothing should get in the way, because he should be responsible for his actions. And if you put an outside character that even puts that into question, it diminishes it. That was
Chris,
my point.
If I'm being honest about
go back to
Brainiac,
Lex.
just in like terms of what I think why he was put there for, other than like, you know, whether he should or should not be there, but I really do think he was brought there in a way so there would be something getting Superman off of Earth as well. You know what I mean? Because he,
and the mind control. I definitely like the mind control, right? Like if he did completely defeat Brainiac and just used him, for his mind control, that would have been perfect, because he was the perfect plot device. Like he gave Superman the ability to tangibly do his idea of utopia. So he actually stepped past the line. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, like his idea of utopia, he doesn't see it, is he's controlling everybody against their will. so with Brainiac's mind control, it gives him an actual tangible way to do it. So it gives the audience this kind of like, oh, so that's the step too far, and it also gives him a way to see himself like oh, like I did do what I didn't want to do in the first place, which was like control everyone, right? Or you know what I'm trying to say? I think.
Yeah.
I think one of the major reasons they brought Brainiac into this story, like just from the get-go, was they wanted something with an analogous feel to something that actually did happen to the real Superman. And that was the shrinking of Kandor, right? Brainiac shrunk Kandor and put it in a bottle. So he shrinks Stalingrad and puts that in a bottle, right? So I think that's a big part of it. And the other thing is it's also analogous for what Lex Luthor delivers as a message to Superman at the end of the comic book as well. It doesn't play as well in the animated film, but it plays very well in the comic book. So I think that
I like both. I think they both had their ups and downs.
If we're going back to like, if we're like taking this back to the beginning of Superman itself in his first introduction, like you said, when he showed his powers, Svetlana, who's Lana, was like, you need to give these to the state.
I love that.
Yeah, I know, it's pretty good.
They did that with everybody, yeah.
And the fact that you know, he's kind of, at first it's kind of seen as like a propaganda thing, like the state's like, this can't be real, this Superman, and he still is wearing like the whole outfit and everything else. And the thing that kind of shows you like Superman being like Superman is when he stops a satellite from crashing into Metropolis. Like that's like like that rung like really true to me, to his character. And it's kind of like what you said, Chris, which is like his character deconstructing, because like that's what we know, like Superman coming in and like saving the day, right? And saying to them,
and that was early on,
yeah,
when he was still very much Clark Kent Superman. You know what I mean? Like he's still like the good guy Superman that we know, because it was early on in his career before he got trapped in his own ideology.
And then also like with this, like Lex takes a notice of him, and then it's the same thing. It's like he now has like this purpose of like, I'm going to now create these things and try to destroy this person, right? And then it's always interesting, like those two characters, the way they play back and forth, because it's like a weird, like, it is a rivalry. It's not a friendship, but it is a weird like symbiotic relationship, you know, because it basically consumes Lex. And I don't know what you guys thought of like the villains he was sending at them. Some of them are like Ratchet, like that like fake Superman guy thing. I was like
Superior Man.
Superior Man, yeah, Superior Man was crazy. Obviously they're trying to touch on Bizarro for sure, but I want to go back to what Saba was saying about the dichotomy between Superman and Lex Luthor. Now, I find this one way more interesting than I do the real Lex Luthor and the real Superman, or the non-Elseworlds version of these two characters and their relationship, because this particular aspect of their relationship in this context is way more interesting, because it's not just Lex Luthor versus Superman. It's not just this intellectual powerhouse being threatened by this literal outsider, like outside the planet outsider. It becomes a battle of nationalism and ideology, right? It becomes a battle between the United States and Russia, and in democracy and communism. And there's such a blurry line as to what's really motivating Lex. Is it the threat of Superman? Because in the non-Elseworlds world, it is Superman that's threatening to Lex Luthor. It has nothing to do with nationalism, it has nothing to do with political ideologies, it has nothing to do with either of those things. It literally is Lex Luthor feeling threatened by somebody who is superior to him.
I might challenge that, because Lex in a lot of works, Lex is definitely afraid of, or not afraid, but threatened by Superman. But it's also most like at least the most interesting versions of Lex in normal canon is the ideology of like the idea of a Superman, like an unearned power, because Lex had to earn everything himself.
Yeah.
Because of his intellect, and it was like, but I agree. I do agree with you that I like that it's much more than just Lex as a person who naturally doesn't like someone like Superman who has unearned power.
Exactly.
But also on top of everything, nationalism. But yeah, like I think Lex's relationship with Superman has always been about the idea that he doesn't like how this person has unanswered power.
Yeah.
Right? Unearned power. But anyways, continue with your point.
But also the fact that he's not from Earth. He's not of the Earth.
That too.
And there's that aspect of being afraid of the unknown. So that is
he's threatened. He's threatened by the other, right? But like, I like this version of Lex Luthor better, because I don't like somebody who is driven by the motivations that the regular Lex Luthor is driven by. Like, I can't get behind that. I can't get behind hating the guy that saves everybody's life. I just can't get behind that. But if I'm well, I am. Like, I'm a huge fan of democracy, right? Like, you know, I can get behind that idea. I can be like, you know what? If this guy's going to use his superpowers to try and impose communism around the world, rock and roll, Lex Luthor, let's do this shit, right? Like, you can actually identify with this character within the context of this story. That's what's so cool about him in this context. And he's a way better character in the comic book than he is in this. Like they really downplayed a lot of his really high pitched moments and really downplayed a lot of that shit, which I was kind of upset about. But
yeah, I don't know how I felt about the dynamic between him and Lois, because he still kills people in this, and I just don't picture Lois like staying with someone who kills people. Like, I didn't picture that for her. But.
I don't know, man. I think Lois got a femme fatale in her for sure. I don't know. I got that feeling.
I find it interesting. The Lois thing, that's like I found interesting compared to the comics, to the movie. In the movie, she definitely has like more of a role in it. And her and Superman have more of like, even though they don't really have a relationship at all. But it's more by like, to me, like for me, it's like she has her career. He has his thing. They're married. They see each other when they see each other, kind of thing. There were some times I'm like, yo, Lois, like your man is sending superior man over. Like, you know what I mean? There's like definitely things that they're doing that she's kind of like sticking by him with that I find kind of questionable from the Lois that we know. But maybe she's someone who, I don't know, maybe like Lex, like this could be it. Lex could support her in a way that we don't really see, in terms of like she's someone doing her own thing, just like how Superman is. It's like someone who this person who is seen as great also recognizes a greatness in her. I don't know if that's what this is, kind of thing.
I didn't get that, because there was that one scene when they're in the limo and someone asks Lois a question about her career, and he had no idea what was going on. I think she got a promotion or something, and he didn't know about it.
You're right.
And she was just like, oh, like, how could you not know that? Or she just comments on it and then keeps talking to the other person.
Oh, yeah. And when she was saying, like,
I didn't picture her being in that type of relationship. That's all.
Yeah, that's for sure. Well, with Lois, I kind of liked how she, like, how they're showing like a sort of a dysfunctional relationship with Lex and Lois, and how Lois knew like how important Lex was, and she was kind of staying with him because he's like very important. Like the whole thing with Superior Man, the reason why I think she stayed and why it's a good thing, because like think about that context for a second. That's a nuclear warhead that they're sending to fight. Like, I understand like it was very questionable what Lex did, but think about the context. This is a war, like this is a Cold War, right? And they have like the strongest weapon there is. Lex gets a little bit more leeway to do questionable things, because they have nothing. They have nothing to compare to Superman, right? So like I get like it's good that Lois objected to it, but her staying I think wasn't a wrong thing, because like at the end of the day, like Lex was doing what he needed to do, right? And I think Lex was kind of the standout in this movie. And I thought Wonder Woman could have been a really big standout as well. I think they missed their shot with Wonder Woman.
They really fucked her up,
She was
man.
my favorite part. No, Wonder Woman was definitely like my favorite part of this. I thought she was the standout of the movie. I really like that one scene where she's captured by Batman. That's probably my favorite scene of the whole movie. It's also, I guess, the climax of the movie. So that's probably why.
Yeah.
Oh, that's definitely one of the
I
best
liked
scenes
her.
in the
There's just like
film.
such an intensity
a certain point, but then her action at the end of the movie,
I agree.
I don't know how true that rang for me. You know?
So my biggest problem with this movie was like Wonder Woman. And I think like not Wonder Woman the character, but like what they did to her at the climax of the movie. And for the most part, Lois as well. There was a lot of posturing in this movie that went nowhere. Like, I understand Lois was like this like feminist, and I liked it if it went anywhere, but she was just saying things like that went unanswered, and then no one addressed it. Like she took a shot at Superman for calling her Luthor, and she's like, I'm not an appendage. And then Superman doesn't say anything, and then like she just like says random things, that's like really like posturing, and then nobody in the movie kind of like addresses it. It's as if like she's just talking to the audience, and then we're just supposed to just like take her message. And then
I perceived that as sass.
like
I perceived her as like sassy, but to me, Lois Lane is kind of like that.
Yeah, me too.
I didn't find that out
Yeah,
of
me too.
character for her.
I liked her like sassiness, that's for sure. But like somebody address it and not don't just.
I feel you,
like,
Chris.
It felt like
I feel you
a
here
product placement.
because in the comic, like the way she was treated was actually really cruel in the comic. I feel like near the end, especially by Lex. With this, I think they wanted to give Lois like more of a voice than she had in the comics. For whatever reason, they changed the story there. But she really, her biggest role though in the movie, I guess she had two big roles, which was giving him the file, which was a very big role. And then also the end, she was the one who like carried the message kind of thing, right? Right.
I love that. That climax I thought was really well done. However, I think that was the role for Wonder Woman. That role should have been Wonder Woman, because this whole time, so the fight of the ideological fight was between Lex and Superman, but Wonder Woman was also there. She was the third fighter in that ring. And they completely underused her, because her whole thing was like, listen, you're the strongest dude, and and like your ideology in the purest form is a good idea. Let me broker that idea to the other side, and we can find a middle ground. That was her entire thing. That was her entire sort of like dog in the fight, right? But then they completely wasted it by her just going, oh, you're just another pathetic man, and then leaving. It's like, what about your ideology? What about your middle ground ideology? Like, you just left? I don't like, it's completely wasted for me.
Yeah, but dude, like, she's a partner in spreading the communist message across the globe with Superman at one point, right? And when
because
she sees the way that Superman values her, she loses complete interest in being a part of that anymore, because from a symbolic perspective, it echoes across the entire ideology.
I feel like
right?
she also left when he took it too far. So when it got to that point that he was kind of corrupted, she could no longer stand by him.
I don't agree with that, because this was my issue with her, because she didn't leave when it went too far. Too far for Wonder Woman should have been North Korea. Like, and her island, they don't deal with things like that. They don't do mind control. Like, too far should have been when he was doing like lobotomies on people. The fact. Yeah, like that should have been her too far.
Yeah,
right?
But she left the island.
I agree with that.
No,
I think she should have
right.
left sooner.
Right, but she left the island.
Yeah.
She left the island to embrace communism. She left the island. She
left the island because she believed in
right?
Superman.
Like,
no, incorrect.
No, she met him at a party.
Exactly.
She met him at a
Saba.
party dancing. She
Like,
didn't leave the island because of that. She was an ambassador, right, for the island.
Yeah, no. Like, no, like Saba was right. It's not like she left because she believed in Superman, and when Superman devolved into what he is at the end of the movie, she couldn't take it. My point is, why leave? Like, fix it. Like, you're supposed to be the answer to this, because you're the one that believed in Superman the most, and when he fails, her just leaving just proves that he is a pathetic man. Or you can be the solution. I don't like. It's such a wasted character, in my opinion.
okay, I don't think one individual will accept an entire ideology just based on the representation through one person.
I don't think that's the whole reason, but I think her trust in
that Superman introduced her to communism.
Superman is like a big thing, because I think people trust in people, and when you do, you
Yes,
kind of
exactly.
want to believe what they believe in, and you see good changes happening, but then it just goes too far.
Yeah. Wait, Frank, that's how these extreme
I get
ideologies work. People believe their ideologies, but they believe in them in conjunction of the person leading them. Like, that's what Stalin was. People believed in Stalin. His ideology, well, before Stalin, his ideology, people believed in it. But before Stalin, it wasn't as big as it was after Stalin, right? Like, it's the forerunner of the ideology that people believed in. Obviously, like, they believe in the ideology as well, but like Wonder Woman going there, it was because Superman was making changes, right?
Sure, but I'm saying one is not separate from the like what I'm trying to say is that Superman wasn't the primary motivation for Wonder Woman taking on this ideology, right? There was something else there. It's not just Superman. Like without like she doesn't abandon
yeah, it's not just
the
Superman.
mascara.
That's for sure.
Sorry?
It's not just Superman. That's for sure. But he's
Right,
the primary.
right, that's what I'm trying to
It's
say.
the primary thing she believed in, though. It was him. It was
Right,
definitely him. It
right.
wasn't just socialism.
Right,
Communism.
and we know, right, and we know in the context of the movie, it's not some love affair. That's for sure, because they changed that, right, to make it work for some fucking reason. I want to go back and talk about what Sabo was saying about Lois.
I actually hated that he didn't get a love interest in this. Like, just because he's communist, he doesn't get to love. Like, I thought that was kind of ridiculous. But yeah,
No, in the comic book, he says something about sex. Like, there's a conversation about sex, and he's like, "Oh, good." Oh no, sorry, no, it was in the movie.
Yeah.
They're talking about sex, and he goes, "Oh, good. Now I can focus on." Like, he wants to focus on his mission. Like, he doesn't want to be taken off of his path. Like
I
Superman,
think that's a little extreme. I think even for Superman.
Communist Superman had no interest in sex. That was the message. That was the message. So, anyways, my point with Lois is that I think that the character got changed so drastically because DC anticipated how she would be perceived by their female audience in this day and age. Okay? I also think that's why they did what they did to Wonder Woman. I think that there was a lot of post editing done to make sure that this movie was more palpable for certain members of its audience, without a doubt. Now, the problem with that is the degree of the separation between Lex Luthor and Lois is much more pronounced in the comic book. And through that, you get to see how much more dedicated Lex was to the cause of trying to defeat this Superman, right? Like, you see the divide. You see the divide between these two people that supposedly are married and love each other much more clearly than you do in this movie, because they give Lois this identity where it's like, oh, she doesn't even give a shit. Like, she's got her own life. She she's a self-interested woman, and she's career driven and all this kind of shit, right? And they do this, and that fucks up that relationship.
This kind of shit, Frank. But continue.
What?
I was like, you don't have to say "and this kind of shit," but you can continue.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean it like that. I don't mean it like I'm not trying to be insulting.
No, I understand your point in terms of, yes, the one in the comic, like I said, was treated quite, like, I would say by Lex was treated cruelly, especially near the end of the comic as well. That there was one thing that Lex did that I was like, wow, that's a very awful thing that you're doing to someone you're supposed to love.
Yeah.
Right? Lois in this movie, like I said, I had like a few kind of gripes with her. They gave her a little thing in the middle explaining why she's staying with him, which they didn't really do too much in the comic, but they gave her that in this movie, which was like, that man, what was it? Like, that man's going to be something. That man's going to
change the world or make the world a better place. Yeah.
He's going to change the world.
Kind of.
So the line is number one, he supports my career. Number two, the sex is great. And number three, that man's going to change the world.
I forgot about that line.
Yeah.
I didn't catch
Which
that.
made it seem like in either world, like there's like, because like if you think about like Lois Lane and just the normal Superman world, sure, wanting to be with Superman, this person who will change the world kind of thing. I see that. I do understand that her character in this movie, in my thing, was kind of, she was there just to kind of be there. I mean, she's obviously like a very prolific Superman character. There's no way they're going to make this movie without a Lois Lane.
Yeah.
Okay, so in the comic books, Lois was a bigger part. And I understand why she wasn't that big of a part here, because like there just wasn't enough time. Like there's so much character development that they had to do for Superman. My problem is, because they already relegated her part to this sort of
cliche
contrast to Lex Luthor, this like whatever to Lex Luthor, like she shouldn't have been the one to change Superman's mind. It should have been Wonder Woman, because she was the one that was growing with him, that fell into his web, right? Into his web of ideologies, and then like because she was of level mind, she figured out that he was wrong. She should have played that last part where Lois changed his mind with the miniature Stalingrad. because she was the one that was like challenging his
but that
ideology.
makes sense for Lois, though.
The only reason why she even stopped Superman was because we know that Lois and Superman have a thing in regular universe. In this universe, their connection isn't at all like, at least the movie version isn't at all as like pronounced as Wonder Woman and his relationship.
But Chris, I think the reason why she's the one who's also challenging Superman is because she is the free press, and that is like kind of against his ideology, and she sees that he could be a good person if he believed certain things were different. So that's where she keeps challenging him.
Yeah, I guess that's a good point, but I feel like that could be true. But by the end of it, she was more Lex's wife than any other type of character, because
that to me is why that was a problem to do that. Like, I don't think that she had to be Lex's wife. She could have just been a reporter. She didn't. I
kind of like that, honestly.
I like that in her weird way that she's still connected to Superman somehow. Or to like,
I like that they still have chemistry or whatever.
Yeah, I felt like it didn't serve this story. It served more of like a fan service moment. You know what I mean? Like, it's like her connection with Superman wasn't like, besides that.
I meant like her like connection through Lex, because like Lex is this person who like basically like Superman is like consuming his mind. But I do see the point. Yeah, if like Stalingard and then if that was presented by someone that like meant something more to Superman and Wonder Woman doing that, but Wonder Woman by that and was like, yo man, I'm out of here, I'm back to my island, y'all are crazy.
Yeah, like there was that aerial battle with Wonder Woman before he got to Washington, so that's so I don't see her flying back to London and being like, hey, here's your miniature city, thanks for punching me in my face. You know, I don't see that.
There's
happening.
actually, so we talked about.
No, but like that's what I mean, Frank. Is in my ending, that scene never would have happened, right? Because that scene was so stupid to me. Like, I thought that was the dumbest scene, because essentially it was like, like her point by the end of it was like, you're just another pathetic man, and with her leaving, she proves her point. Like, there's no redeeming quality to Superman. There's no like backtracking to what he was before the fall of it. Was just like, she just proved her point, because like she just never changed her mind. She just leaves.
Yeah, so but okay, so one of the things I want to touch back on is like, you've referred to Superman as the bad guy in a couple times in this review, okay? Yep. But the great thing about this film, and the great thing about
not the antagonist. Let's be clear, not the antagonist, but like the morally bad guy or whatever.
But the great thing about this film, is the good and the bad guy are based on the perception of the viewer, right? Like if I'm a communist,
but the natural progression of this.
Sure.
Sorry, go ahead.
But what I'm trying to say is like, whatever, like, it depends on what side of the it depends on where you are in the ideological spectrum and how you determine who the good guy and the bad guy are, right?
Sort of, although there is like a strong bias.
No. Correct.
No, let me make my point. Hold on. Okay. You guys are thinking that everybody's just going to look at everybody's going to think the way that, like, that's why the story was told, was to make people look at their moral barometer and where they are. Like, this is what these kind of stories do.
Oh, 100%. Right?
I'm not saying from my perspective he's a good guy. I don't think, like, he's a very morally ambiguous character, right? In the end, he obviously has his epiphany and realizes he did all kinds of wrong, and he feels horrible for it, right? But there are people who still think that what he did could be a good thing. That's the fucking crazy thing about this story, right? Is that's why it was on such opposing ideological spectrums. The entire story was so nobody could put somebody in the middle and be like, that's the bad guy.
So it's not like, okay, so it's not like, I definitely agree with you. It's about questioning. I think you used the wrong words there, because it's about questioning protagonist and antagonist, not good and bad, because the entire story is the whole story is a deconstruction of Superman. By the end of it, he realizes he was wrong, independent of the ideology. It was him taking it too far. He realizes
his methods.
His methods, exactly.
It was him breaking his frame. Yeah, but he broke his frame to find that idea. Yeah,
but like you're right, and I agree with you. This was my point. This is the reason why I like this movie, is because I make myself ask the question, like, at one point, what did he start going wrong? like that's what I like. But there's no question but that at the end of it, he was the wrong one. It has nothing to do with socialism or communism or democracy. It was about his methods, because by the end of it, the main thing that you take away is he took it to the point of mind control. The kind of point of it is that, like, what happens when you take a pure idea, a pure utopian idea, and you implement it in one person's vision, right? And that's what corrupted Superman. So, but by the end of it, like, he realizes he was wrong. There was no question by the end that Superman was wrong. And it has nothing to do with the ideology. It has all to do with him.
It does have to do with
will.
ideology too, though, because in a communist system, all those checks and balances aren't there where someone can tell you that you're doing something wrong.
Right. That was the instrument of him, like, going too far, right?
Right. But like this, but this story is also about the fact that a utopia is not a real thing and will never be a real thing.
Yeah,
but Frank, to your point, I agree that the viewer was kind of supposed to make up their own mind, and I did feel like the sense of American nationalism was like a little bit too overpowering. It didn't kind of give the audience that opportunity to come to those conclusions themselves.
Yeah. American exceptionalism, always. American exceptionalism.
I felt that it was pretty heavy-handed, because even in terms of, like, democracies, we concede corrupt democracies everywhere.
Of course.
You know what I mean? So it doesn't. That's where I sort of support Chris's point, is that it was more for me like the methods he chose to get to this ideal point were obviously, like, heinous. Like, anyone could see that way. But guys, there's something that we haven't actually talked about. We've been talking about this for a while, but one character we have not talked about is Batman.
The problem.
We've just completely bypassed.
I want to talk about Batman,
and there's a lot there.
And we need to talk about the absence of a very important character in this story.
Green Lantern Corps?
Very important character.
Okay.
But let's go into Batman first.
I agree with you, Chris. Though
Batman.
Also the Green Lanterns. Oh my god.
Batman in this, he was very aggressive.
Very aggressive
movie.
Very aggressive.
It made no sense. So this is to me where that sense of American nationalism came in. First of all, why was he even Russian? I don't know. It made no sense that he was Russian.
That's the point. Everybody was Russian.
If Batman is Russian,
what do you mean?
I don't understand why
he was born in Russia.
Wait.
Batman. But why was Batman born in Russia?
Batman.
No. It wasn't Bruce Wayne. It was that kid. It was that kid from the
Gulag.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a reimagined.
Okay, that's what I was confused
the whole thing
of. I didn't catch that.
Yeah, the whole thing is a reimagining of Batman and Superman, basically, and So I want to make one point.
But also, just because he's Russian doesn't mean he's going to be this like terrible person. Like, I didn't like that.
That's not.
Well, I don't think they were.
Yeah, it was
trying
about
to
extremism.
Say that.
That's what it was about. It was about extremism.
Yeah.
So
I got that.
He was like some revolutionary.
So I want to make one point. Does anybody else agree with me that they shouldn't have called this guy, like, his name shouldn't have been Superman? It should have been Red Sun. Does anybody else agree with that?
Yeah. I mean, I don't care.
I think calling him Red Sun would have just been a little
cheesy.
bit extra. Like, I don't think I would have liked that. Yeah.
No, it would have been dope.
Also, that's like very, like, the Japanese have the red sun in their flag. I don't know if it will get confusing.
Now that we're on the subject, it's weird to me that he has the socialism like flag, like, because the S from Superman was like from Krypton, right? And he had that. It's just weird to me that he changed that because his suit, suit had the S. They should have kept the S. I don't know.
And the fact that somebody named him the same exact name that he got in the previous universe. Well, that doesn't. First of all, the origins of the name of Superman come from Lois Lane as a reporter. Okay, because she discovers him, right? And then she calls him Superman.
But reimagines are iffy in that sense. Like, they can do it. Like, they can take whatever element they want to take.
They should have called him Red Sun, and Batman should have been Bearman, not Batman. He should have been Bearman.
Okay, if he was named Bearman, I don't know. I really don't know.
That's weird, dude. No. It makes a lot of sense because think about it. So he grew up working in the Gulag, right? In the caves where there's a lot of bats. That's where he got it from.
Dude, he was a prisoner. He was a prisoner.
Yes.
He was
a prisoner. But Frank, then people are going to start calling Batman a bear, and we don't need that in our lives.
No.
Why? What's wrong with that?
Look, that was over Frank's head.
No, do you remember when we first see like little kid
Was
Batman?
that a gay joke? What the fuck?
Oh, true. It is. It is.
Was that a gay joke?
So.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah, old what is it? Old hairy gay guys are bears, aren't they?
Yeah. There's a
Not necessarily.
Oh, I
there's
thought-
a
I thought
term
I
in the
had
gay
to go.
community that
And-
is a bear. I'm not exactly sure what it refers to, but yeah, it is
Mm-hmm.
a term.
But like,
Neither-
anyways, let's
neither
get
am
back
I.
to
What the
let's
fuck?
get back to Batman.
No,
Yeah. So
No,
speaking
no.
of Batman,
because it's Russia. Because it's Russia, the
Yeah,
bear
I
would
could
have worked.
see that.
Yes.
I don't know.
That's my
Yeah,
point.
it was.
I guess, but
Yeah.
I like the fact that
so
It
that
would've
was your
been
biggest
funnier.
gripe with the character was the name.
No, that's not my only gripe. That's not my only gripe.
I kind of like the whole Batman because like when I saw Batman, I'm like, oh, I understand why this version of Batman calls himself Batman. It was because the first time you see him, it was in the cave, right, in the gulag, and there was and you
Yeah.
see bats in the actual scene. So it's like he spent
Yeah.
he spent
Yeah, I
his
saw
life
that.
there, and that's why it's like a
Yeah.
symbol for his like dark upbringing, right?
I would have liked to see a little bit more character development there. It just seemed really
Yeah, yeah.
abrupt to me how he just appears and all of a sudden is involved in the climax of
I don't
this
know, man. I
movie.
think there was a lot of character development. He was murdering everybody.
The thing that really got me was in this movie when he's like first introduced and he's like, you have this much time to escape. And he's like, just joking, you only have this much time.
Yeah, what a shithead.
And then, and I was like, well, okay, so like this is really a departure because in that form, like he's kind of taking on the role, what you could say, at least in Batman's eyes, as of a terrorist.
Yeah, he's
right?
definitely
Like,
He is a
he's going
terrorist.
there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
whereas within
see-
the it was very much like a Joker thing to do. In the comic, it was different. Like there was still a little bit of remnants of Batman there. But like, what did you guys think of that? Like that, like
Well,
You
the
go
problem with the way Batman was, it didn't create any morally opposing
Yes.
force to Superman,
Thank you.
because that doesn't make him any
Yeah.
better than Superman. If he was a revolutionary
Yeah.
and he was saving lives and he was using non-lethal means to still achieve his goal, his agenda, then he's a hero. He's a revolutionary. He's a hero of the people, right? But when he starts killing innocents in, museums and shit, and then killing innocent cops and stealing helicopters and blowing them out of the sky just because he wants to, that his whole moral appeal is
Yeah, I think I
fucking
would have
gone.
wanted to see more of a V for Vendetta vibe or something with
Yes.
that character.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Oh, yeah.
I think I kind of think that's what they were going for, honestly, but I think it just failed. So the problem with Batman, like, don't get me wrong, Batman taking drastic measures is exactly what it should have been.
It's what he does. It's what he does.
But listen, but let me finish. Like Batman this version of Batman should have been more of a Thomas Wayne Flashpoint Paradox Batman, where he does take drastic measures. However, his motivations should have been much more different. Like it's not my entire life, because he says this, like, my entire life goal was to destroy you. It should have been different. It should have been to oppose your, because he does mention that, like, oh, like you, because he says it on the loudspeaker, I'm pretty sure, where he says, like, you think you're providing us a utopia, but you're just imposing your will on everybody. He says it somewhere, I'm paraphrasing, he says somewhere something along those lines, and then he changes his entire motivation to, I'm just trying to hurt you because of what you did to me when I was younger. Like, what's the point of that? Like, what's really the point of that? You're not questioning his ideology. You're not questioning his control over the people, because you're just angry. You're just an angry dude. So it's like it was a throwaway thing.
Yeah, but that's the thing in the comic book. Yeah, but that's the thing in the comic book. They set him up perfectly. They write him perfectly.
Yeah.
Like that is the perfect opposing moral force to what Superman represented.
exactly.
You know,
and I do like the fact that he was a sort of this revolutionary that kind of did what he had to do. Killing the innocents was weird. Like I would have wanted him to kill like Superman's enforcers or something like that. Like his soul, like something like that. Like I wanted him to dip into past like the line that Batman normally never crosses, because it's like it's a different thing, it's a different world, right? I wanted him to be this darker version, but it didn't make any sense that it was just mayhem he wanted to do to lure Superman out.
I think what would have made sense too is if this version of Batman kind of was like in contact with or like working with Lois Lane. I think that would have been cool, since like Lois Lane is supposed to represent the free press and all that.
Yeah.
Like I could have seen something where like he's her informant
Yeah, but he's
or
working-
something.
He worked with Lex in the comic.
yeah, he's working with Lex Luthor. Yeah, no, but obviously he's working with Lex in the
That's right, that's
animated
right.
series,
Yeah,
in the
that's
animated movie too, because he's got because he has his tech, right? He has his tech, so he's obviously working with them.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
So that hat though.
Yeah, that hat.
Horrible.
Very
Why?
warm
Horrible.
looking.
Horrible.
Let's just
Horrible.
It's cute.
Horrible,
It's good luck.
horrible.
It's a good
Let's
look.
Russian up Batman. What can we do? Put a fucking
Horrible.
hat on.
That was so horrible.
Didn't Superman get a stash too?
What?
No, that would have been
No.
hilarious.
Why do when I picture the movie at the end and he's old, I picture him with a stash. Is this something I
Because
don't
I
know?
think you're obsessed with the things that you hate about Zack Snyder's Superman.
Oh yeah, that's probably
CGI.
it. You're right. That's so true. But the whole Diana scene, and we mentioned this before, Diana, Batman, and Superman, like that scene in itself was very was very good.
Yeah.
I love that trap.
And it
That
kind of
trap is
showed to
cool.
me how far Superman had
Yeah.
gone, because Superman in our world, you know what I
Yeah.
mean, in the original, not Elseworlds, he would have never asked Diana to sacrifice anything for him. He wouldn't.
Never.
He wouldn't do
Never.
that. He wouldn't ask anyone to sacrifice something for
He wouldn't
him.
ask anybody. No.
That's
he wouldn't ask
not
anybody. You're right.
That's not
100%.
a Superman thing to do.
100%. No. This is like this is an ideologically possessed Superman. That's what this is, right? And he's going to do whatever he has to achieve his ultimate goal, which is to make the world in his image, right? Like to his ideals. That's what he's trying to do. And so the other problem I have with that Batman bomb in the chest scene, like or his intestines or whatever the fuck it was, it doesn't play with the Batman that we saw in the earlier scenes of this movie. Like the Batman we see killing the cops and blowing up the museum and killing all those people, I don't see him being this sort of self-sacrificing martyr. I don't see that happening.
No choice, 'cause
You get
Superman
what
was
I'm
gonna fuck
saying?
him up.
Well, that too. It may just be a measure to prevent him being mind jacked like everybody else.
Yeah.
But it didn't play well.
Yeah.
It didn't have a rhythm to
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's too abrupt, and they didn't introduce him. I don't know. Yeah,
Yeah.
I feel like that could have been played out differently.
It could have been a longer scene, and he could have been like. Don't get me wrong. I like the fact that he killed himself. I thought that was fucking gangster, and that's exactly what he would do. But like,
Yeah, that was.
but like
that was fucking heavy
What
metal.
they introduced to us, it didn't track. That's I definitely agree with that. Like, yeah.
So the one character that is conspicuous by his absence in this film that didn't get transferred from the comic to the film version is Piotr, who is Stalin's illegitimate son in the context of this story and grows up alongside Superman once he joins the state as Superman. And he's got relationships with a number of different characters. He's kind of like one of these pebbles you throw into a pond and the ripples kind of pass over all kinds of different other characters within this story, other events in this story. And he's definitely impactful, which is kind of it was kind of weird not to see him in the film. I don't know how you guys felt about that,
I
but
really
I felt
liked
it
his
was
character
odd.
in the book. I think, like you said, it really did help pull the story along, and it kind of like, was the way of somewhat humanizing Superman, I think. And with anything, with with a movie, you can only put so much in a movie. I do think it's interesting that they took out this character that was pretty like monumental. But I guess maybe there was already people know the story of Lex and Superman, and maybe that's the one that they wanted to highlight in the movie.
Well, I think that's all we have for this episode, but we're definitely going to come back and finish this off. We still got lots to unpack from the DC animated film Superman Red Son. Still lots to cover. We want to touch on the ending a little bit. I think we want to contrast in a general sense. We're not going to spoil it for you, but we want to contrast the ending of the comic book and the film a little bit, I think, without obviously giving away too much. So come back and join us. We look forward to having you guys back. And we're going to sign off here. I'm Frank McGuire.
I'm Christina Duduma.
I'm Chris Abana.
And I'm Seba Mir.
Later, dudes. Stay safe.
Peace.